Oh, hello there. I didn't see you come in. Yeah, it's me with my hot cocoa again. Because it's still the Christmas season. And of course, I promised a second Christmas story. If I'm going to tell you the tale of the Krampus, check it out in the description. Then I'm going to tell you the tale of Saint Nicholas, the man who Santa Claus is based on. He was born to a rich family, and unfortunately, he was orphaned at a young age, giving him quite a bit of wealth, but nothing to really do with it. He ended up going forward and entering the clergy, becoming a monk, and eventually becoming a bishop. In his time, he used his wealth to give people gifts and to help people out, especially children, who may have faced troubled times. The most famous story is of a poor man with 3 daughters. He was so poor he could barely keep his daughters, and unfortunately, he did not have enough money to provide a dowry in order to marry them off. The man prayed for something to help him and his daughters. And St. Nicholas was told by God, go to this man and help him. So he prepared a small sack of gold, snuck up onto the roof, and dropped it down through the chimney so that the man would receive the gift without knowing who gave it. And the man took the gift and married his first daughter off and used that gift as the dowry. So now he only had to take care of 2 daughters. But of course, times are still hard, so when his second daughter came of age, St. Nicholas again arrived and dropped another sack of money down the chimney. And the man took this miracle and gave it to his daughter so that she could be married. Finally, when his third daughter came of age, the man was wise to the potential of a sack of money falling down the chimney and wanted to know who his mysterious benefactor was. So he waited and he waited and he waited. And when it happened, he ran outside to see that it was St. Nicholas on his roof. He was like, oh, thank you so much. You've helped me so much. You've answered my prayers. And he's like, God told me to help you, so I'm going to help you, just as I've helped many people. All I ask in return is you don't tell anyone it was me. And the guy says, I will not tell anyone. But as you know, it is very difficult for people to keep secrets. And before you knew it, everyone found out that St. Nicholas was the mysterious benefactor who was helping everyone out. However, his whole life wasn't just presents and prayer. You see, it is believed that St. Nicholas was also imprisoned because of his beliefs by Emperor Diocletian. He was freed by Emperor Constantine, who had converted to Christianity after a dream. It's a whole story. We'll get to Emperor Constantine eventually. But what you need to know is that St. Nicholas was one of the men freed who was being religiously persecuted. Then, alongside other holy men, were gathered together at Nicaea to basically write a list of what Christians believe. And that became the Nicene Creed. So for anyone who has gone to church and had to read the Nicene Creed, you now know where that came from. We'll get into that a little bit more deeply when we get into Emperor Constantine in a later video. But St. Nicholas, yeah, Santa Claus was basically involved with that. Kind of a cool little fun fact. It is not entirely known what year he died. It is known it was December 6th, which became his feast day, but as far as it stands, some people say he died in the 340s, some say he died in the 350s. We know he died some point around there at least. He was buried in Myra at a temple, but years later, a group of Italian sailors would go and take him and remove him out of, lands that were not seen as Christian lands, and brought him to Italy, where he was brought to the city of Bari. Years later, he would then have his body moved over to a church of St. Nicholas over near Venice. So if you were ever in Italy and travel to Bari or to Venice, you will have the opportunity to see the grave of St. Nicholas. Or if you go to the town of Myra over in Turkey, you can also see his original grave because his original tomb is still there. And science has proven that all these 3 locations are the burial places of St. Nicholas. So thank you, science, for proving that the stories of the body being moved around are true. Catholics can get a little weird with the location of the saints and the relics and all that stuff. So moving the body into a more Christian territory, even though that's not where the person preached, happens. The Feast of St. Nicholas became a time to provide children with gifts of either sweets or toys or whatever that child may need. This event was paired with Krampusnacht, so if you survived Krampusnacht, you got presents on the Feast of St. Nicholas. However, as time passed, the people celebrating the feast reduced, and not because it ran out of style or people stopped caring, but more the point that other people in authority wanted to change things up. During the Reformation, Martin Luther wanted to pull Christian people away from venerating the saints and have them focus more on Jesus and God. To do that, he decided we no longer are going to celebrate saint days. And so what Martin Luther proposed as an alternative is to give presents on Christmas to celebrate the birth of Jesus, which had been set as December 25th by that point, even though that's a whole story. And even if December 25th wasn't the actual birth of Jesus, it's when it was being celebrated, and Martin Luther wanted people to focus on that. However, the belief and the love of St. Nicholas was so great, they shifted it to Christmas. And now St. Nicholas is bringing you gifts on Christmas to help celebrate the birth of Jesus and to show the love that people feel for each other. In England, Henry VIII helped establish the Anglican Church. So during this time, a new character was created to celebrate Christmas for everybody, and that was Father Christmas, a jolly old man who brings you gifts because Christmas is that awesome and you deserve presents. This is best represented by Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. The ghost of Christmas present is Father Christmas. Big, jolly person who is spreading the wealth, the joys, and the love of humanity, and etc. Those two events helped shift the present giving from December 6th to December 25th. When Dutch settlers came to the New World, they brought with them the feast of Saint Nicholas. However, the pronunciation of the name was Saint Nicolas. There are reports of their celebrations around the late 1700s, and they continued on and got bigger and bigger to the point that by the early 1800s, there were news articles about it, and people were talking about Saint Nicolas, which then got kind of morphed into Santa Claus. And thus, the American name Santa Claus became the primary name for the holy man who comes by and delivers presents to good girls and boys on Christmas Day. And with that came art, stories, and music that helped develop the mythology around Santa Claus. Beginning as a guy riding around in a sled with a horse, the horse became a reindeer, the sled became magical, North Pole, Rudolph, all that stuff grew and grew over time. Even the drawing of him, initially featuring clothes of the era, eventually took notes from Father Christmas and added in a red motif, and the red motif led into the traditional one we have now. One final note, the celebration of Christmas with the presents and all that, and the feast of St. Nicholas also has a tie into the celebration of Yule. Now, Yule deserves its own video, and we'll get it next year. There are many different forms of celebrating Yule, to the point that, like I said, it deserves its own video. Many of these beliefs tie into the winter solstice, which is said to be a time of great spiritual power when a lot of spirits and magical things are about, very similar to All Hallows Eve. At this time, it was believed that one of the gods or a servant of the gods would come down and bring blessings onto those who were righteous. This merged with many of the Feast of St. Nicholas beliefs, and that is how they got many of those pagans into a Christian celebration cycle. However, there are other stories that say that during this time, the shamans or high priests or whatever their religious leader was would go door to door providing food, sometimes coal or wood for burning. One of the other things they would provide were toys for the children or even warm clothes to the various people of the village during the midwinter because of how harsh some of the winters could be. That kind of elder man coming by and delivering gifts and food and whatever necessities the family needs, also obviously tied into this whole Christmas tradition thing as well. It is interesting to see how many cultures contained a belief that during the winter times, a time when people actually get more depressed at this time period than any other time of the year, that sometimes you need cheering up. Sometimes you need to be reminded how important your family and friends are. Sometimes you need to feel loved and wanted, and sometimes you just need a little gift that can just help you get through the tough times. And those beliefs have been around for centuries. The fact that even in the modern age, we still carry a tradition of giving gifts to each other as a way of showing our love for each other, even during the darkest times, and perhaps especially during the darkest times, is amazing to me. As I wrap this up, as this video is meant to be posted on Christmas Eve, which I wish wasn't a Saturday this year because probably no one's going to watch this video, I just want you to remember what Christmas really means and to bring that joy into your life and the lives of everyone around you, family, friends, loved ones. Wow, I'm not usually that, sentimental. Anyhow, what's most important is that you like and subscribe, because that's the Christmas present I want. And until next time, thank you for watching, and I'll see you at the tavern.